Greetings and good morning. I was on the phone with Mr. Anonymous last night, and I was talking to him about the DMV issue, and it goes on to explain other issues that are going on as well. And we were talking about due process of law. And Mr. Anonymous said, if you want to help people comprehend due process of law, go look up Bodie versus Connecticut, Bodie v. Connecticut. And Bodie v. Connecticut, if my memory serves me correctly, I haven't revisited it, is about a divorce case. And in the Bodie versus Connecticut, the judge gives a great thesis on due process of law. And so if you guys want to go look up Bodie versus Connecticut and do your own research on the subject matter at hand, then perhaps you'll understand due process of law better and be able to effectually utilize a private administrative process to hold these men and women accountable. It's important to separate them from the title. The title leads you to believe that somehow they have authority over you, but you strip them of that title and quickly realize that you're a man, I'm a man. You're a woman, I'm a man. What gives you the right to lord over me? Now, you'll see in the DMV video that I released where I was down in Lincoln, Nebraska at the state capitol, they allege that the statutes trump the Constitution. Not only do they trump the state constitution, but they trump the federal constitution. When we start talking about federal due process of law, you'll see that the man says, well, we're not going to do that. We're not going to go down that road. Derek, you follow state statutes or else. It's a lot like in Germany when they said, papers, where are your papers? You must have your papers. If you don't have your papers, you're going to be in trouble. It's ridiculous. How free are we if we're required to run around with these people's documentation? Remember, he who creates is master, right? And if they create this documentation and you volunteer to use it, you're subject to it, period. One of the things I found interesting about his statement was, once you register it, then, and only then, can you sell it, Derek. Well, that completely negates the Constitution for the United States of America, which says, Article 1, Section 10, that nobody, not even government, can infringe in private contract. So he's telling me, from his own mouth, that I either go along to get along with their program or else. And that he doesn't care about the Constitution, for which he took an oath to, which I find appalling, and everybody should. So we've got a lot of First Amendment auditors out there, and I think it's fantastic. I absolutely enjoy watching them. And they're pushing the issue about the First Amendment. And the First Amendment is so important. That's why it's number one, ladies and gentlemen. But the First Amendment doesn't give you any rights. It protects your unalienable rights to engage in activities that the Founding Fathers knew that eventually a government would try to lord over or infringe upon. So the Constitution doesn't give you any rights. It is a strict set of guidelines that doesn't allow these cretins, these agents and agency, to encroach upon your unalienable rights, your freedom. And it's important to gain that knowledge and understand how it works. If state statutes trump the Constitution, trump the Declaration of Independence, trump the Federalist Papers, well, just put it in writing and sign your name to it. But you notice when you give them an opportunity to put their belief in writing and affix their name to it so you can hold them accountable, they will run away every time. One of the other things that I found interesting about my interactions in Lincoln, Nebraska is, as soon as I'm asking poignant questions, he says, Derek, you need a lawyer. Well, the lawyers are the very reason we're in this predicament in the first place, ladies and gentlemen. Why on God's green earth would I run to a lying, looting, pandering, sniveling little snot rag and ask his opinion on something? Remember, if you don't know your rights, ladies and gentlemen, you don't have any rights, period. If you have to ask somebody else whether or not you have a right to do a thing, then you don't have the right. The answer is always no. And I learned that with firsthand knowledge and experience in a courtroom. Well, don't I have a right to do this? The judge just looks at me, the ministerial administrator goes, no. Well, wait a minute. I don't ask questions I don't already know the answer to, and I know you're completely full of shit. But when he said no, and I didn't rebut it, I acquiesced to it, didn't I? The other thing Mr. Anonymous and I were talking about was something that was not mentioned while I was physically at the DMV, was okay, there's another remedy here. If you want me and wish for me, and you're saying that I have to register something, you show me how to register a private household consumer good that's tax exempt. Because that's on their books, which is for us who aren't engaged in commerce to utilize our private conveyances, our private household consumer goods, freely on the highways, byways, freeways, passages, and roadways without being accosted by gun-toting morons for frivolous bullshit. Because again, the only thing they're out there to do is monitor commerce. Okay? So let's talk about some remedies when engaged with gun-toting morons on the side of the road. You see, the officer of the alleged law, operating under color of law, under color of office, he can issue whatever he wants all day long. The issue then becomes, are you the process server or the witness? Because you can't be both. You either administer a process of service or you're the witness. So when you get on the stand, which one are you? Because you can't be one and the other at the same time. It doesn't work that way. Okay, there's one remedy, if you know how to effectually use it. The second one is talking to the magistrate. 3 different occasions asking 3 different ways whether or not you can speak to the magistrate. Well, what's the importance of speaking to the magistrate? Well, you see, the magistrate, according to due process of law, is required before they make the assertion of creating the court case. 1, they have to have an affiant under the pains and penalties of perjury stating harm, injury, damage, or loss. And they have to swear to their statement under the pains and penalties of perjury. 2, they have to be independently bonded. Okay? They have to provide a hazard bond or some type of bond to ensure that when they bring an action against you, that if they are found to be incorrect in their assessment, that you can be made whole for the slander upon your good name, and not only that, for your time, mental anguish, and any other injury or damage you may incur due to their falsified record and claim. All right? They never have this, ladies and gentlemen. If I was to bring a claim, like the prosecuting attorney brings a claim, my claim would always be dismissed for a frivolous claim being filed for which relief can't be granted, as I never independently bonded the case. Okay? And if I didn't fill out an affidavit properly under the pains and penalties of perjury, attesting to what transpired, then there would be no case. They wouldn't even open the case. All right? That's just how it works. So how is it there's this double standard that these people can bring a case without an injured party and without being independently bonded as they should, and when the court date comes, there's not a man or woman standing in there willing to testify with firsthand knowledge, providing testimony that you caused them harm, injury, damage, or loss, which makes the alleged witness a liar right out the gate, because you can't be a witness to a crime that doesn't have a victim, ladies and gentlemen. It's that simple. That's your remedy if you know how to articulate it and bring it forward. All right? If the statutes, codes, rules, regulations, city ordinances apply to I as a man, I just need someone to bring it forward. All right? Bring it forward, put it in writing, sign your name to it. Be liable for your response. If you believe with such conviction that I, as a man, have a fiduciary duty and obligation to engage in your corporation, sign your name to it. But the other thing that I want to know is, how can any agent and agency compel I, as a man, to enter into a contract? Can any judge compel me to perform, to enter into a contract? And would that contract, if they could do such a thing, would it hold any legal bearing, weight of any kind? And the answer to that, ladies and gentlemen, is no. But see, before we ask that question, we need to know the answer, and we need to know why. Well, when you look at Article 1, Section 10, and you understand due process of law and how contract is created, you comprehend that a contract, in order to be binding, must be mutually beneficial for all parties involved. There must be a clear ascension of the mind, which means all people have had a meeting of the mind. And it must be signed in wet ink signature, right? And it must be witnessed. Everybody must be on the up and up. Now, how is it beneficial for you to pay this gift tax that, quite frankly, doesn't benefit you? In fact, it's a burden to you and yours. How is it that these people allege that somehow the statutes trump due process of law, the Constitution, the Declaration of Independence? I just don't see it. Now, if somebody on here sees it, if there's a lawyer or an agent and agency that can prove conclusively that I as a man am required and compelled to perform in any way, shape, or form, I will do that. As an honorable man, you have my word. If you can show me that it directly correlates to I as a man, a living soul, mind, body, spirit, and soul, that I am obliged and that I must do a thing, just make the order and sign your name to it. But you know what? There's not one agent and agency that has the balls to do that, because it would be a blatant act of treason. And not only that, you don't have the authority to tell another man what to do absent a crime. And a statute, code, city ordinance, rule, and regulation violation is not actually a crime. Period. Until there's an injured party, there is no crime. In fact, the only crime that's occurring is you have an agent and agency trying to lord over you and tell you what to do and compel you and force you into some type of contract through threat, deception, coercion, deceptive trade practices, which are all violations of the law. So I just want to touch base with you guys on that a little bit. And I hope this helps you guys at least ascend to the mind. Free your mind just a little bit. And you can learn so much more at selfgovernanceu.com. We're just getting started here. The ball is just getting rolling. I'm speaking to a lot of brilliant men and women that are going to participate. Hopefully here in the near future, we will have a forum opened up where your messages won't be deleted anymore. When you're putting pertinent intel and information out there, that information will be preserved. It won't be like Facebook. You'll still be able to scroll up and down to see the information that's privy to the knowledge you wish to gain. But this much is true. I will never delete any of the information that's on there because it's all relevant. And there are a lot of brilliant minds out there that are putting great information out on places like Facebook, YouTube, BitChute, that are all being taken down for political reasons, if you will. False fact checkers is no different than the burning of the books back in Germany when they were burning all the literature because they wanted to indoctrinate people. So with that said, there's just a few remedies I've mentioned to you today. Again, if you want to learn more about due process of law, there's a great thesis on due process of law in Bodie versus Connecticut. Bodie versus Connecticut also shows you that there is no fine or fee in order to open a court case, period. It just doesn't exist if you know how to articulate it. Remember, there's a difference between public and private. There's general and then there's special, okay? It's either general or it's special. You're either making a special appearance or a general appearance. It's either a special private priority, exclusive jurisdiction of equity on the private side, handled by a chancellor in Article 3, subsection 2, subpart 1, qualified chancellor before him or her, or it's public, okay? And we know these things to be self-evident at this point, once you know where to look for them and find them. On the public side, the private issue cannot be mixed. They can't commingle, although you can have a private court running at the same time the public court is running. Remember, the public record isn't necessarily public. It's actually a private bar guild matter until you rebut the presumption, right? And you never want to challenge subject matter jurisdiction because subject matter jurisdiction exists or you wouldn't be there, right? But what you want to do is challenge in personam jurisdiction, and people lose their way so often, not realizing the distinct difference between that. Jurisdiction, quite simply, is very easy to challenge, okay? Without a victim, there is no crime. Is there a man or woman here today stating, I, as a man, caused them harm, injury, damage, or loss? I wish to go ahead and provide remedy to the man or woman making the claim. Whether their claim is true or not, I don't care. If the man or woman will just simply come forward and state their claim, I will provide remedy. Okay, I wish to stand in honor. I'm not a U.S. citizen. I'm not an enemy belligerent combatant. I'm not a resident. Okay, a resident, when you look it up, is a resident of Washington, D.C. If you were a resident of the state of Nebraska, which is a subsidiary corporation of Title 28, 3002, 15A, you pledge yourself to be a citizen of Washington, D.C., a subject slave, a 14th Amendment hood rat, if you will. And people keep getting the 14th Amendment misconstrued as though it coffers you some kind of right. It does not. It does not. It actually enslaved everybody under unfair, deceptive trade practices. It doesn't liberate a damn soul, okay? I watched a man who spent 273 days in a jail where they tortured him, imprisoned him, dropped all charges against him, and when he brought a suit under the 14th Amendment, they basically told him his ass wasn't black enough to bring a suit under the 14th Amendment, right? He could have come under anything else and he would have been fine. But he chose to come under the 14th Amendment, and they dismissed the charges because his ass essentially wasn't black enough, all right? So just remember that. What else do I have to inform you on? It's real simple. Your 6 best friends. Who, what, when, where, how, and why. And if you can't get these people to put it in writing with a pen and paper and sign their name to it, then they're absolutely full of shit. They're full of shit. They have no standing, no presentable or material facts to support their presumption or assumption. They're simply going off what lawyers have told them to do. All right? And these lying, looting, pandering pieces of shit, quite frankly, need to be sent back over to England. That's where they all belong. They want to work for the bar. They want to work for Bala Bala. They want to work for the criminal syndicate that fleeces people globally, worldwide. Let's send them back to where they want to be, because they really want to be under the rule of Britain. They really want to be under the rule of the Queen and King, and let them be over there. We don't need them anymore. In the 21st century, if we could just get ourselves educated to the point where we can substantiate and handle our own affairs, it'll be just fine, ladies and gentlemen. Because I will tell you this, 99.9% of the people that are out there are good by nature, all right? Equitable by nature. All this controversy, all this conflict that stems from these statutes, codes, city ordinances, rules, and regulations is nothing more than an artifice and a scheme to fleece you and your loved ones so you take less home at the end of the day. Remember, without controversy, ladies and gentlemen, these people don't have any business. So they're in the business of deviling. They're in the business of creating controversy where otherwise none exist. And now it's just a matter of knowing how to handle your affair. If you hire a lawyer, Corpus Juris Secundum, Volume 7, Subsection 4, automatically you are being extorted. Okay? There is nothing that lawyer can do for you. And in fact, if you want to prove it to yourself, go ahead and write up this little ditty right here. I will faithfully serve the man or woman who has hired me to protect their unalienable rights. I will do my duty and uphold the United States Constitution for America. Okay? And put it down in writing and make them sign it. They will immediately recuse themselves for a conflict of interest, because their first allegiance, ladies and gentlemen, is to the court, not to you. And the court is a private, for-profit business hell-bent on fleecing you. It has absolutely nothing to do with justice at this point. Now people go, now Derek, that's a little crazy. I've seen some justice exhibited in the judiciary. Oh, no doubt. When there's a capital crime, somebody has committed a murder and they deserve a life sentence. Yeah, we see it from time to time. But 90% of the lower court cases have absolutely zero to do with capital crimes and everything to do with fleecing you over a statute, code, city ordinance, rule, regulation that they can't rightfully prove applies to you. And it's only due to your ignorance and your failure to timely assert yourself that you get bound by a blind adhesion contract, a unilateral contract, for which you're the only signatory to the contract. You're the only one coming in as surety, and they won't give you your right to subrogation even if you ask for it, because they intend on stealing from you, looting from you. They're pirates on land, which is a violation of Title 18, 1661. one of my favorite Title 18 statutes. And again, I only mention the statutes not because I intend to use them, but because it's important to study and understand what they're doing and what they're actually guilty of. You see, those statutes, codes, city ordinances, rules, and regulations only apply to them, ladies and gentlemen, because they entered into a contract with the United States and now are volunteer employees that are being compensated at some degree and level, and they're absolutely bound by that. And yet they traverse the subject matter and allege that you're the one that's bound by it, not them. In fact, there's a place in the Nebraska revised statutes that say that statutes apply when they apply, and then again there are times they don't. So you wonder why cops, alleged officers of the law, can shoot unarmed people in the back of the head and not go to prison for it, for murder, which is clearly what it is. It's murder. They weren't in fear for their life when somebody was running away from them and they gunned them down. They ate too many fucking donuts and couldn't do their job. So they decide to shoot somebody and euthanize them because they're out of breath and they can't catch them. And that, to me, is despicable, ladies and gentlemen. And these people should be going to murder for that. How about use of chemical warfare? You know, according to the Geneva Convention, that when you use chemicals on people, that's inhumane behavior, and you can go to prison for it. You can go to Leavenworth. If you're in another country using noxious gases and stuff to inundate people, you can go to Leavenworth for it. You can go to prison for it. Here in the United States, you can use what's called pepper spray. And everybody goes, oh, well, Derek, that's less than lethal. You can't die from that. There are people that have died from it, ladies and gentlemen. And it doesn't abscond from the fact that it's a man-made, manufactured chemical. Those cans don't grow on trees, which means some man had to create that concoction. And by creating that concoction, it's a chemically laden weapon, all right? And we're not supposed to be using chemical weapons on anybody for any reason, which is a violation of the Geneva Convention. Okay? So think about that, ladies and gentlemen. A lot of the times that you're being encountered by these gun-toting morons, there is zero cause to be accosted against your will by them. Absent an injured party, without being reckless, without being about to commit a crime or in the act of committing a crime, they have zero business with you. In fact, their only business is to monitor and engage in commerce. And everybody says, well, Derek, the second you walk out of the door, you're engaged in commerce. No, I'm not. That's not the intent of I. The intent of I is to make a living, to do well and right by my friends, family, and others in the community, right? That has nothing to do with commerce. Okay? Not a damn thing. And you also have the right to survive, all right? It's an unalienable right to go out there and forage for food, to survive, to make ends, to do what you need to do in order to survive. So remember that. Let's see, what else can we talk about? You need to start studying the difference between trade and commerce. Commerce is a taxable event. Trade is not, all right? Very, very simple. And trade falls again under Article 1, Section 10, where it tells you have the unalienable, unlimited right to contract at will. Also, what I like about Article 1, Subsection 10, is if you start to learn trust law, it gives you the unalienable right to create trust at will. Trusts are so beautiful, ladies and gentlemen. Why? Because the trust indenture is the law of the trust. It's the intent, the purpose, and the law of the trust. And that's where you can come in and say, own nothing, control everything. All right? The grantor settler creates the trust indenture on behalf of the beneficiary. I'll leave you guys with that. Thanks for joining me. I really appreciate it. I appreciate all your support. Again, if you want to learn more, selfgovernanceu.com. Some kind words from Mr. Anonymous. We just want to know how you register a private household consumer good, tax exempt, because the primary use of the automobile, the modern day conveyance, is again for private household consumer good reasons. It isn't engaged in commerce. And we know that it exists because it's on their books. But when we talk to the detectives and ask them about it via the phone, they said, Derek, if you want to go down that road, you're going to have to study it. We're just going to tell you to follow statutes and register it. Well, I've offered 3 remedies so far. Make the order. I'll fill it out. And sign it with your wedding signature, and I will fulfill that obligation and order. 2, show me how to register a private household non-consumer good. And 3, just show me where the statutes, codes, city ordinances, rules, and regulations apply to I as a man absent a contract. And the 4th one is, if you can just go ahead and compel me to perform, just make the order, right? Tell me that that's going to be a binding contract if you make the order. and sign your wedding signature to it and show me that you have the power to lord over me and make me contract, and that it would be a legitimate, lawful, binding contract, I'll do that as well. There's 4 different remedies there, ladies and gentlemen, and I can't get an agent and agency anywhere near here to touch those issues. And that should all cause you guys to think, why is that? Why would he have to just volunteer and go, okay, okie dokie, I'm going to go ahead and do that, because statute says. Why can't they just make the order? It seems really easy. See, they got plausible deniability at this time. Well, he read the statute and he felt that the statute applied to him and thus he's bound by it. Well, that's not the case. I've read these statutes. I don't see anywhere where they say they apply to me. And so we'll leave it at that, ladies and gentlemen. Just remember who, what, when, where, why, and how. Always ask those questions. Always record these agents and agency. They're not your public officials. They work for a private corporation. They're absolutely liable for what they do. All right? Not general liability, personal liability. So we get their full name, and then we say who sometimes acts or wants to act as deputy state sheriff, because he's really not a deputy state sheriff. He never has been a deputy state sheriff. But his name is very important, ladies and gentlemen. His Christian appellation, his Christian calling. We're going to take it from general liability to personal liability, because these people need to be held liable for their slanderous ways. Their activity is unbecoming of anybody that can perceive possibly to be honorable. Thanks again for joining me, and we'll see you soon at selfgovernanceu.com.